Good morning. I'm pleased to welcome you to Adriana Califano's exclusive interview with Luke Prokop, the talented young ice hockey player who made headlines for courageously coming out as gay. We delve into his remarkable journey on and off the ice, from his promising career in the NHL to the strength it took for him to share his truth with the world. Prokop opens about his experiences, challenges, and the positive impact he hopes to have on the LGBTQ+ community and the sports world at large.
Thank you so much, Preston, and we welcome Luke here. Thank you so much for joining us today. My first question for you, Luke, is how did your journey with hockey begin, and what motivated you to take it up as your profession?
It was just kind of natural for me to get into the sport. Growing up in Canada, my grandfather played, my father played, my older brother played. I played every sport kind of growing up, but hockey was the main one I focused on. And then probably around the age of 12, 13, I realized that I was above my peer group in terms of my talent level and my skill set. And then I just kind of ran with it and went from there and tried to see if I can make a career out of it.
Awesome. That sounds like so much fun. I play sports myself, and I know I connect right away with different, sports in general.
Yeah, yeah.
My next question for you is, could you detail your path to self-recognition and the process of sharing your truth with your colleagues and fans?
Yeah, so it kind of all started when I was 14 years old. I I always knew um I was gay. I just don't think I knew what it meant or was put in an environment where I kind of understood it. And that was when I was 14. I moved away to a hockey school in British Columbia. Um, and at that age, you're 14, everyone's going through puberty. Guys start talking about girls and stuff. And I was like, well, that they sound nice and all, but that, it's not really, my thing. So I kind of went through that process, 14, 15, 16, kind of just keeping it all to myself, trying to figure out what it actually really meant, looking some stuff up, doing a little bit of research, um, and not knowing entirely. I wasn't even really focused on my hockey at that point in time because I wasn't established as a professional player yet. Um, or going to be. I was still in junior. I was still really young, so I wasn't really focused on my hockey or how it would affect my hockey. And then when I got 16, 17, I was starting to get looked at by NHL teams. I got drafted. Um, so then being gay kind of came back into my into the forefront of my mind, and I was like, okay, how is this going to affect my hockey career if I were to come out. Um, so COVID happened my 17-year-old season, and I don't know what it was. Something about being cooped up in my home with my family, just feeling all the love, just in general from them. At that point in time, just made it seem right for me to start coming out to them. So my sister was the first person I told in April of 21. No, April of 2020. Um, and from that point on, it was kind of a year-long process of telling my family, my friends, all of whom met me with a lot of, openness and acceptance, which I couldn't be more thankful for. Um, and then it started the process of, okay, do I want to come out in a sport where, no male professional under an NHL contract had done so? And that was always kind of something I wanted to do. I wanted to make an impact on hockey outside of the rink, um, allowing for little kids to see someone like me, that they can relate to on TV, because I didn't have that growing up, and I know that that was hard for me. So it was a long journey. To think that was, my coming out post was 2 years ago. I started the process almost 4 years ago was is kind of insane. It's gone by so quickly, but it's been a whirlwind and it's just been nothing but extremely positive for me though.
That's really inspiring to hear. Did you have any fears coming out to your family to begin with?
I mean, you always do. Um, as you do research and things like that as a young kid, you hear stories about, some individuals' families who, don't accept them, whether that be religious beliefs or just, whatever. So I always had that in the back of my mind. And I think as human beings, we're trained to think of the negative. We're always, thinking that it's not going to go the way we want it to. Your parents aren't going to accept you. Your friends aren't going to accept you. You're going to have to find a new whole family, new whole friend group. Um, so there was some nerves, and that's why it took me so long to come out to my family and my friends after kind of already knowing for 3 years. But again, it was funny. I never had a good relationship with my sister growing up. I was always playing hockey, traveling, things like that. She was always at home. She's 5 years older than me. And then in COVID, we just got this, really, really nice relationship going on. And she's one of the least judgmental, people in the world. I think I could go to her with anything. So I thought, that would be a good first person to tell because as someone coming out, I think you always want the first experience to go positive. And with her, I knew it was going to be, but again, in the back of your mind, you still never know what's going to happen. So there were a lot of fears, but again, I was met with so much love and openness from my family that and not a lot of individuals out there get that, which is sad.
No, it's so great to hear that they were so receptive and accepting. That makes me so happy. I have another question for you. So, are there any specific teammates or mentors in the NHL who encourage you to embrace your true self?
um, I mean, it's funny. I've been on three teams now in 3 different years since I came out. Um, all of those teams I can pick. I mean, I can't pick just one on each team. They've been amazing to me. Just kind of wanting to learn more about my community and my coming out story and things like that. Um, Mentors coming out, obviously Brock McGillis. He was a big one for me, being the first professional player to come out. Um, he sort of gave me the groundwork on what might happen the day of, what's going to happen a year after, 2 years after, because he's been through the process before with the media and people reaching out to him on social media. So he gave me a lot of tips on that. And I'm still a good friend to him to this day. We still keep in touch. Some teammates that I'd like to point out. Jake Neighbors, who I played with in the Edmonton Oil Kings. He now plays for the St. Louis Blues in the NHL. Um, he's a guy I grew up with playing hockey. When we were 10, we played on the same team. And then we played again on the same team when we were 19 years old, and we were friends throughout that time. He was someone that, just allowed everyone to come to the rink as their true self. He didn't want anyone to hide a part of who they are. So it was great having him on my team for the first year of me coming out. It just made me feel so much more comfortable in my own skin. In Seattle, I lived with one of my best friends. His name was Lucas Siona. He's a prospect for the Calgary Flames and plays for their American Hockey League team now. Um, he was again a guy who wanted to learn. He had a lot of questions for me. Kind of a bit different from Jake. Jake wouldn't ask a lot of questions. He would just always make sure I was comfortable in social settings and if something was said. But Lucas was always, curious and asking questions, and he was a big supporter of our Pride Night that we had in Seattle. It was a fan-driven Pride Night, so the team wasn't overly involved with it, but he was one of the main guys that the fans contacted to make sure that the guys were on board with the tape and everything like that. So those two are have probably been the biggest help for me so far in my teammates for coming out.
I know friend support is such a huge part of coming out, especially when you play sports with them going through that. Were you like nervous to tell them or were any fears? Like I know you assumed the worst, but like was that like the last step for you?
Yeah, I mean those fears are tough because you're spending 24/7 with them, especially in the locker room. You don't know if they're going to think differently of you now, because of your sexuality in the locker room. Obviously, I've heard the slurs in the locker room on the ice, things like that. So you don't know if those are going to continue to happen, if they're going to be directed towards you, if people on my team just think totally negatively of me. If it goes against their religion, their beliefs, and they want to distance themselves from me. And obviously that's not good for the dynamic of the team as well too. So yeah, those were fears I had. I told When I came out, I was on the Calgary Hitmen, and I had two friends on the team that I told before my post came out. Um, and those were two guys that I had a great relationship with for the past 2 or 3 years playing with them. And I felt that it was almost needed to do that because if something were to be said in the locker room, I know those guys kind of would have my back. Um, so I did a little bit of um, due diligence and however you want to call it. But I kind of made sure I had a little bit of backup. I had two guys on my team who I knew supported me. So if anything was said towards me or just in general, I knew they were going to step up and say something.
No, that's really important. And I'm glad that you had those two friends to help you, go through the process, because it is a process. It's like it's an adjustment period.
Oh, massively. I mean, I knew people were always going to be, looking at me, not looking at me differently, but maybe, whispering about me, even after I came out, talking about me maybe behind their backs and stuff like that. So to have two guys on the team who were, cemented, older guys on the team, real leaders, it just felt, it made me more comfortable. I knew those conversations were happening and things like that, but to have those two important guys in my life and on my team at that point in time was huge for me.
They were your rock, and I think I'm happy that you had that, especially during this time for you.
Yeah, everyone needs a rock.
Oh yeah. My next question for you is: have you experienced challenges in the sports realm because of your sexual orientation with teams or specific teammates?
I mean, since I came out, I can't think of any. It's been extremely positive. Obviously, there have been a few instances on the ice um, that things haven't been directed towards me. An opponent might have said it to one of my teammates. Called him a slur or something, and they bring that to my attention right away because I think that's the right thing to do. Um, I remember it was one of those times it was in Seattle and it was in the first period and my teammate told me that and all the guys in the room. Not It wasn't just me, it wasn't just him, it was every single guy in the room was pissed off. They didn't, that obviously they knew that wasn't right and they made sure to let him know for the rest of the game that that's not okay. But I mean, I can't even count on my one hand how many instances I've thought where it's been a challenge or, um, set me back in my career in any way. I think it's been nothing but positive for my career. I've had two amazing seasons since I came out. I've won two championships since I've come out. So it's been smooth sailing so far. I don't expect it to continue that way because again, you never know what some idiot's going to say on the ice or something like that. But you can't control that. You just kind of can control your reaction and your emotions towards it.
Yeah, that last part I think is really important to hear. You can't control what everyone else is going to say, but how you bounce back, how you come back from that is really important. I think for everyone to know that.
Yeah, it's one of the major things I had to do before I came out was I was always a people pleaser growing up. I never wanted for someone to say something negatively about me. I was always trying to do the right thing, and I was always reading what people were saying about me online in hockey. So I kind of had to get over that a little bit. People are going to say negative things about you. People aren't going to agree with your beliefs, and that's just life. You can't go on in life, believing that you're a perfectionist and trying to please everyone because that's not realistic. Um, I gained my bubble, my rock, my group of friends, my family that I knew that they supported me 100%, and that's all that mattered to me. I didn't care about the opinions of everyone else.
I think that's one of the biggest hurdles to overcome is you really just can't care what they think. You have to be, accepting of yourself and know that you have those people that they really care and they really do support you.
Yeah, it's a huge step, and that's, when someone reaches out to me on social media, that's one of the first things I say to them, if they're thinking about coming out, because it just comes with it, you know. Um, it's kind of a hostile thing right now in our world, and people, you know, don't believe in it, to an extent where, you might get death threats, or things like that. So you have to have a really thick skin, to come out in this community, and it was something I had to gain over time. It just didn't just click overnight.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really great for you. I'm really happy for you.
Thank you.
My next question for you is, what have been the pivotal hurdles in your professional journey, and how did you tackle them?
Oh, that's a good question. Um, well, I'll start. When the year I got drafted, in 2020, from the first COVID draft, excuse me, we had to play in a bubble, as most professional teams did. We were a junior team, but we had to play in a bubble. Um, for 3 months, we were stuck in a hotel. The whole floor was to our team, but you couldn't leave the hotel unless you were going to the rink. You couldn't do anything like that. Um, you couldn't go out and get a Starbucks coffee. You couldn't go out and get McDonald's after a game or something like that. You couldn't do anything. Um, we were stuck in our hotel rooms when we first got there. It was 10 days. You weren't allowed to leave your room at all. Um, and then we got COVID during the season, so that was another 7 days. But at that point in time, I wasn't out yet, but I was out to some of my family and my friends. So there were a lot of rumors going around, within the league that I had heard of. I had friends on every team in the league, so they would tell me if guys were hearing stuff, things like that. So that was really hard for me to focus on continuing to focus on my hockey when that stuff was going on in the background. Um, I've always been a believer that there's life after hockey. So at that point in time, I was just more focused on what people were saying about my life, not really my hockey career. And as I think, if you were to look at my season and my statistics of that season, it was probably my worst in my whole 5 years of playing junior. So that was a really hard time for me, just because, again, I didn't like the rumors going around about me, and I wasn't playing well, and things like that. Um, the next hurdle, I mean, probably going to a new team, the following year. You'd never know how people were going to react to it. Again, I didn't really care, but again, you wanted it to be positive, especially going to a new team and meeting a whole bunch of new guys, who had big aspirations to win a championship team, and you don't want to be that distraction. And it never was. It never was once. So that was really good. Um, and then I wouldn't say the next one wouldn't be until, maybe professionally, would have been this last year at the start of my season. I attempted to start my pro career off, um, in the American Hockey League, and it didn't work out. So they sent me down to the East Coast Hockey League, and not knowing much about the league, and how it was run. I mean, it still was a professional league, but it didn't feel like it. My coach wasn't great. My teammates weren't great. My team was horrible. Um, and I still had the opportunity to go back to junior for one more year, so I was really wanting to do that. But there was a little bit of a clash between me and Nashville, my team that drafted me, because they have the say of if I get sent back to junior or if I stay in pro hockey at that time. And so it was about a 3-week time frame of me, really wanting to go back to junior, not having my mind, present on where I was at that moment, really struggling with my play. Um, Not understanding why they were keeping me here and not sending me back down to junior. Um, and then eventually it sorted itself out, thankfully, and I got sent back down to Seattle and played the rest of the year from November on junior. Um, and then through that year, I mean, I think one thing that kind of was a hurdle for me to jump over was the Pride jerseys. When all of that stuff came out, I knew I had a responsibility, when I was the first openly gay player with an NHL contract to come out. I knew there was going to be a responsibility for when stuff like that, like the Pride jerseys, like the Pride tape, when that stuff happened, I would have to speak out on it. I just didn't understand the extent of it. I hadn't had to do anything up until that point. Um, and I really had a lot of people, coming at me on social media. I mean, I just sent out one, little post just because I think that's all I needed. And, I think I didn't need to do this massive video or a long thread or something like that. It was just one little post, for people in my community that felt like they were heard and understood, about the disappointment. But I didn't understand the backlash I got from it. Um, so those were things, again, you don't. I say that I had that, thick skin and, not care what people say about me, but sometimes it does get to you. I mean, you're a human being, not, you can't withstand everything. So those were hurdles, but again, in each of those scenarios, I had my teammates and I had my family and I had my friends to lean upon when, I was struggling or I wasn't doing my best in life and in hockey.
It's always tough to, you take everything, you just take everything, and then sometimes it just, everything just crumbles. It sounds like there were a lot, and then.
Yeah. I mean, that's one question I get asked a lot is, why do you think someone else hasn't come out yet in hockey, a male professional? And I mean, I don't think the game is going to go in the direction that everyone wants it to unless, more guys start coming out. But at the same time, I can also see why they don't want to. There is a responsibility when you come out in this business and in this community, that you have an obligation to talk to the media about, Pride jerseys, Pride tape. If someone says something homophobic on the ice, a coach, with a sexual scandal or things like that, like you have to, they approach you on basically everything. Um, and sometimes it's hard to focus on, I'm a hockey player, this is my job, I got to focus on practice, I got to focus on the next game, and you also have to multitask with doing the media for this and that, and helping, kids on social media. Not everyone wants to do that. um, but at the same time, I think that's something I enjoy listening to other people's stories and being an ear for them when they need it. Um, and also, again, I wanted to create an impact outside of hockey. And again, not a lot of players, I don't think, want to do that. They want to win Stanley Cups and Norris trophies and Hart trophies and Stanley Cup MVPs. And I do too. Don't get me wrong. Like, I really want to win a Stanley Cup. I'd love to win a Norris, but I believe that the impact that you have on the game outside of it is so much greater. I'll have an impact so much greater outside of the rink than inside the rink. Um, and hopefully that it can last a long time. People forget about Stanley Cup champions, people forget about Norris trophies. They don't forget about the impact that you had off the ice.
Absolutely. And I think that it's really special that you want to juggle it. What it sounds like is two jobs. Like, you want to be able to have that media presence, but also, play your game and really like stick to it.
Yeah, and it's hard to juggle them sometimes. But I think I've done a good job, me and my team, for the past 2 or 3 years of keeping myself focused, kind of more so in season. If something comes up, say something. If something doesn't, just keep going on about your business. And in the off season, we do a little bit more media and things like that on social media. But for the most part, I think we've done a pretty good job of keeping myself centered and focused on my goal, which is to play in the NHL.
Sounds awesome. Another question for you. I know you had said that you had faced, some, slurs on the ice and, some homophobia, but how receptive as like a whole was the NHL to you coming out?
I mean, at the start, they were, amazing. I had a when we came up when I came up with the decision that I wanted to come up publicly, we decided as my with my agents and my media team that it would be best for the organizations that I were a part of to know beforehand so they weren't blindsided. So we told my junior team, we told my junior league, we told Hockey Canada, we told Nashville, we told the NHL, we told the NHLPA, and it was all, it was all really good. I had a phone call with Gary Bettman, the commissioner of the league. He, reiterated kind of what he was my last phone call, and he reiterated kind of what everyone had been saying, that he believed it was the right thing to do. It was the next step in moving the game forward. Um, and he gave me, his phone number. If anything were to come up, to, don't be afraid to reach out to him and let him know. And then as the years have gone on, I feel like I've kind of been their token boy a little bit for everything, for Pride Month or Pride Games or things like that. Like, and I've always said yes. You don't want to, upset your boss, basically the big boss. So I've always said yes to doing little things for them on social media or appearances and things like that, and I've been totally fine with it. Um, but I don't think I felt. It was when the Pride tape happened. That was when I kind of felt totally, stabbed in the back a little bit. I felt I had been their token boy for a lot of different things, and I was willing to do that stuff for them. And then for them to kind of come out of the blue randomly with that decision was just kind of mind-boggling to me. I didn't understand it. I could understand the jerseys a little bit because the jerseys weren't really a choice. You had to wear the jerseys, although it's 15 minutes. You had to wear the jerseys, or else, you didn't. Something was obviously going to be said. For the tape, you can put as much on or as little on as you want. A lot of guys in the league, thought it's an important cause to them. They have family members, they have friends in the community, so they want, for them to be heard and seen. So that was really the only time where I kind of felt that the NHL didn't really support me, especially in their statement. The way they worded it was kind of confusing to me. My first reaction, when I read it, was I was going to have to get dressed in a different locker room. I was going to have to, have my own separate bench. Basically, it was the way they worded it was guys who didn't feel comfortable with my sexuality, or groups of people in our community. They didn't have to stand beside them. They didn't have to sit beside them. They could separate themselves from them. So it was all kind of vague. There wasn't actually really a lot of clear direction of what the banning of the tape meant. But I could have guessed that was going to be the decision was going to be uplifted. I guessed that, a day after. It just didn't make any sense. If Connor McDavid wanted to wear tape, what really was the NHL going to do? Were they going to fine him? Okay, you give him enough money that he's going to pay the fine and probably do it again. And if you want to suspend him, you're probably not going to do that either, because he's the best player in the world, and you want to make money, you want to put fans in the seats. So I think that was a really good job by the players to show initiative and show that wasn't right. Obviously, Travis Dermott wore the tape in the game very quietly, didn't say anything beforehand. But though it was a players' initiative that kind of helped get that rule upheld, and it was really nice to see, and it gave me a lot more comfort, with going to different teams and playing professional sports again. You never know how your teammates are gonna react when you're on their team, and things like that, or preconceived thoughts about what they might think about you. But to see some of the players in the league stepping up was really nice to see.
I think that's so great, especially by the player initiative, because I know for the sports community, it might seem like a toxic place for LGBTQ players, and you never know what's going to happen. But seeing that initiative being taken, especially by the players, it's so uplifting and really comforting to hear.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the places where the league is continuing to grow and needs to grow more, is within the players. I like to look at other leagues as examples. I feel like the NBA is a very player driven league. I mean, they can say what they want, they can wear what they want, they're free to show their personalities. Football's kind of the same way. Um, I mean, I'm not huge into baseball, so I don't know a whole lot about that. But hockey, I mean, it's very structured and very old timer a little bit. There's rules from the 50s that you still have to that you have to wear. There's some teams in the league where you can't have facial hair or your hair pass down past your shoulders, things like that. That just kind of are a little bit out of the times. So it's nice to see the players taking initiative for things that they believe in. And it's not just a cause that they get them social media followers or likes on Twitter. It's because it has a true meaning to them, and it's near and dear to their heart.
That's really that. I agree wholeheartedly. Especially like with the times, like I think the sports needs to progress as well.
Yeah, for sure, especially hockey.
Yeah. My next question for you is, what guidance can you offer LGBTQ athletes navigating self-expression and authenticity in sports?
It's a hard time for us. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. It's tough. There will be things said about you. Um, there will be teammates that you think have your back or friends have your back that don't. There will be people that out you. It's it's a roller coaster of emotions. Um, my biggest advice would be to surround yourself with the people that you know think that love you the most and will accept you no matter what. You have to have a good foundation of people to lean on before you start coming out to either the public or more friends or more family. um, because sometimes it's not always going to go the way you think it is. Sometimes it is going to go negatively, and you got to have those other people to lean on, um, for when those times come. I mean, fortunately for me, I never really had any of those. I did have, a few people out me, but I never had an experience of coming out to someone go wrong. Um, but in the world, that does happen quite often. So I would say that is number one is build a foundation of people that you feel like you can trust, and lean upon in times of hard. Um, and then I mean, I think again, I would say you kind of have to develop what goes along with that is not caring about what people thought. There might be a family member or a friend who you thought was going to have your back, or you thought that they loved you wholeheartedly, but sometimes it just doesn't work out that way. Um, sometimes family isn't your blood. That's what I um I heard one of those lines, kind of when I was going throughout my process, and I thought that was really cool to see, but I didn't understand it until I came out that there is a whole community that is going to love and accept you no matter what. And I have felt that, um, throughout my 2 years of being out. Um, there are people all the way across the world that would help you in a heartbeat, listen to you, um, cry with you if you need it. Like, there are so many people in this community that are willing to hear you and love you and support you, that sometimes if it's not your family, that the community is your family, and you can rely upon those people to help you get through those times.
That foundation that you had mentioned like multiple times over our call is really, really important. It's really important to have that foundation and have that those people that you can always lean upon. And I think if you don't, I think it's important to know that you need to have that before you can move on with anything else.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't. I know that's talking to some people, coming up before me, they had to kind of do the same thing. I think it's the first step, because you don't want to go do it, all by yourself, and it's not always going to go the way you want it to. So you got to have those people that you can lean on and talk to when that doesn't happen, and express your emotions and express your sadness, and they can help you, gather those emotions, regroup, and continue on with your journey.
some people may see you as that, like, that motivation, that, like, someone to, like, inspire them. So how do you think your presence can empower and uplift other LGBTQ athletes?
Um, and that's a good question too. It's something that I'm juggling with at the same time. Um, I want to sometimes part of me wants to speak out a lot more on certain topics, like for example, the pride jerseys and the pride tape. Part of me wants to, go all out. But another part of me knows that the biggest way I'll have an impact is if I do play in the NHL. So sometimes it's better to send a little message and keep focusing on my hockey so that, kids growing up, adults, they can see me on TV, seeing that it's okay to play the sport you love and be who you are. Um, that I think it will is when I'm going to have the biggest impact, is when, anyone can turn on the TV at any point in night and watch one of my games and see me on the screen, see me living my life, authentically. Um, Someone who had to, deal with um, being the first, person to do that in the league, um, dealing with all the media and all of the things people were saying about me on social media, and not caring, and just continuing to go and strive for my dreams, strive for my goals, because it's what I wanted to do as a little kid. I have a photo from when I was in grades. I think it was when I was in grade 6, and there was a little chalkboard, and it was, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And mine had an NHL player. It's what I've wanted to do since I can remember. Um, so that's when I think I'm going to have the biggest impact on people in my community, and the biggest influence on them is when I'm at my highest peak in my career and playing on the biggest stages in the world.
That is so inspiring, and I'm sure that's a lot of motivation for you. Get to do what you want. Win that Stanley Cup. It, like, definitely provides you that intrinsic motivation.
Yeah, I mean, there's some days where I don't want to get up and work out. There's some days where I don't want to, go to the rink and practice. But that keeps me going. The little Luke that didn't have anyone to see on TV. You got to get in the gym and you got to help that next person. You gotta be able to put yourself in the best position to succeed in your career and make it to the NHL. And then with that is going to come, people seeing you on TV, kids seeing you on TV, adults seeing you on TV, and them seeing that it's okay for them to be who they are.
That is really inspiring and really great to hear. I have one more question for you,
Okay.
and that is, what key takeaway would you like the listeners to remember?
Um,
It's really loaded.
yeah, wow. Um, don't feel like you have to rush. If you're planning on coming out, it takes time. Don't feel like you have to you know, tell someone one day and then tell, someone the next day and the next day and the next day and the next day. Um, it's a very slow process. Take your time, do it at your own speed. Um, I mean, I told my sister, I think in April, I waited a whole month before I told someone else. And I explained it that it wasn't just, I woke up that morning and I was like, I'm going to tell someone today. It wasn't like that. It was in that moment at night. I just had this feeling where I had enough confidence and enough courage to come out to someone, and I didn't know when I was going to get that feeling again. So I had to do it. I had to capitalize on that moment right then and there. Um, so I would say, take your time and don't let anyone else rush you. I had some people in my life trying to rush me to tell people who they thought would be accepting, but I wasn't fully confident with yet. And trying to tell them, what I just said, they didn't understand that, it doesn't just, I don't wake up and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to tell my dad, or yeah, I'm going to tell my mom. It doesn't happen that way. At least it didn't for me. So again, that's probably what I would say for people coming out. Um, for allies in the community, I would just continue to say to, speak out on if you believe, something's wrong. And that just goes in life in general. if you see someone getting bullied or things like that, to make sure you speak out and stand for what's right. Um, and continue to watch what you say. You never know what somebody else is going through. You don't know everyone's history. You don't know what some people might be going through at that certain time. So just continue to make sure you're using the right language and um, and continue to I mean, it's simple. You learn it when you're in kindergarten, but think before you speak. Um, as hockey players, we don't always do that often. And I think they just sometimes say what comes to their mind, and they don't understand the consequences that those words and those actions can have on an individual. Um, but I've seen a lot of growth in that area as well too, with the teams I've been on. So I'm really happy with that. But for other people outside the community and allies, just remember to think before you speak, and um, watch your language.
Luke, thank you so much. Your story was more than inspiring, and I think that it will really touch upon many of the students here. And I really appreciate you taking your time to talk to me and, get to know you was cool.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate you guys having me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Adriana, for that terrific interview. We hope you enjoyed Luke's inspiring message, and have a great rest of your day.